So we want to continue with the class implementation with the remaining methods. So what is left to do, we need to complete the method for reject request. For the reject request means that it will update the status to rejected if the manager rejects the request, and then get employee requests. So this will return all the requests for one employee, and then get pending requests. It will also return all the requests with the status new or with the status pending for approval overview. So we'll go straight now to complete the method for reject request, because in the previous video we created the method for create request. We completed the method for approve request. And so in this video, we are going to look at, or in this part of the section, we are going to look at the reject request method. Yeah, so to do that, we go to the global class using the transaction code SE24, and we enter the name of our class, ZZCL Leaf Manager 25. We want to edit one of the methods, so we can click on change. And we want to modify the rejects, or want to implement the reject request method. So double click on this. So it takes us to the method signature. So we can put this in display mode. So click on this. Of course, we need to save first. Click on this to be in display mode so that we can write the methods or write the code for the functionality of the method. And then, of course, before now, in the previous video, remember that we have imputed the parameters. So the only parameter that we have is the required ID. So this means that the method will find a leave request based on the employee required ID, and then it's going to update the status field to rejected. Yeah, so when we want to go back, double click on this, and we put the code here to perform the reject request. Yeah, so this is the code here. Created a variable called ls request, which has a type of the leaf request database table that we created, and then read the leaf request from that table based on the required ID, and of course error checking. So you know, if you are checking for errors, use the sy sub rc. So if anything other than 0, then that means the read request was not successful. So if successful, then change the status to rejected. So if we read, yeah, then afterwards update it in the database. So now let's save this, Ctrl S, let's do Ctrl F2 to check for errors. No syntax errors found. Ctrl F3 to activate. So this is activated. Now we save and we have activated the class. We test this method using SE38 report. So let's quickly test if the rejected method is working. So let me go to a new GUI window, and we want to create a new report. SE38 transaction code takes us to the ABAP editor. So let's call the name of the test report a test to reject requests. So let's say on the 25. Okay. So hit on create. Then what should be the title? We can just say rejects request test. So make this as executable program. Click on save to the package. So we write a simple code to test this. So usually this input that we are going to use in this simple code is going to be given by the user. So we're going to use the hard coded values. All right, so we are going, this is a code for the reject request, and we call on the reject request method from the global class leave manager 24. So if we double click on this, save this before going. So it takes us to, this is the global class, and we are calling on the reject request method. Okay, so that's what's going on there. And then we export the required ID. Remember that this was the required ID with 11 was the one we created recently. And if we have the required ID, then it's going to say, oh, your leave request has been rejected. So let's save this. We save this and we check for syntax. No syntax error found. Then F3, Control F3 to activate, object activated, then execute. So it said leave request rejected. Now let's see if this worked. So let's go to SE11, open a new GUI, Control N, SE11. Let's check our leave request table display. So click on the contents and then click on execute. So now you see that the 11, the required ID has 11, the status has changed to rejected. Okay, of course you can also change the manager who rejected the status by inputting the values. So now we are done. That's that for the reject method. So we have two more methods that we need to complete, which is we need to complete get employee request and then get pending request. So far we have completed these three. So let's go ahead and do the next one. So now we'll proceed to the get employee request. And what is the goal? The goal is that it will get all the employee requests. So the input will be the employee ID and then output will be all leave requests for that particular employee. Now, the output format is going to be an internal table, okay, of type ZT leave request. So since we want to output a table, so the output format is going to be an internal table. So you can create an internal table using S11. So this I've already done. Okay, so now let's proceed. Or I might show you how to do this, but let's see. Okay, let's proceed. So we are in the global class leave manager underscore 25 get employee requests, get all requests from an employee. So double click on this. So we are in the method signature, and of course I've created all this before now. So we have also remembered that we have also created the, okay, save this. Remember that we have also created the parameters. It takes in employee ID as the importing parameter and then export ET requests as the exporting parameters. And this is, yeah, so the associated type for the ET request is going to be an internal table. So let's check my package for table type. My package is this number of hits to 10. Yeah, so ZT leave request, table type for leave requests. So let's go with 25. Confirm this and we can save, control check, and then control activate. We want to activate this too, so confirm. Yeah, so the parameters have been checked again. So let's go back to the method signature to write our code here to get all the employee requests. So okay, now so this is just the code for the get employee request. It will just read the records, all records that are matching the employee ID. We select all from the request table into the internal table that we created where the employee ID matches with the imported ID. So we save this. Let's check for syntax. Okay, so employee ID, let's double click on this and see. Okay, the error is this is supposed to be employee ID, or it's supposed to tell me that something this exists. So let's replace this, check again. Okay, yeah, so the exporting parameter, which is the ET request, is going to be typed with internal table type. So let's check the package. Use F for help, search for table types, check my package. And so we can use any of these two that I already created. You can use transaction code SE11 to create the table type. So let's select this. Confirm and Control S, Control F2, no errors found, Control F3, and that is activated. So when we go back to the code, double click, and this is the code for it. So it selects all the leave requests for this particular employee. So Control S, Control F2, and then Control activate. Now we are done with implementing the method logic for that. And of course, to test this, you can still create a simple report. So let's create a new test report using the ABAP editor. Let's say get employee requests underscore 25. So click on the create and the title, just say get employee requests tests. Make it an executable program, save, and then save. Okay, then here you just put in the code that will test this. Put in create the data type. Yeah, so to get the employee request, just create two data type. So L3 requests that has the type of internal table. Internal table type, and then the employee ID. This is one of the employee ID that we already created, and then call the get employee request method from the global class. And these are the exporting parameters, and these are the importing parameters that were already created. And then, of course, to display the result, use the write statement. Here also we can improve by using ALV grid to display the output. And yeah, Control S. So we save this, we check for Control F2, no errors found, Control F3, this is activated. Now we can execute. Yeah, so, and then we get this output. This is the employee request history for this particular employee that has ID E001. So we see that he has applied for leave, and these are the timestamp, these are the leave request times, and these are the status, so that is pending, approved, and rejected. Now you see that, now you see how the method works. This is how we can test this. So if the employee has leave requests, they are listed here. If not, the request shows nothing. Okay. Now, so finally, so yeah, this is a sample of how it will look like to get the employee requests history. Now we will proceed to the final method, which is get pending requests. So the manager wants to see, oh, which of the requests have I not approved? Go to the global class, SC24 display. So if the manager wants to, or the HR wants to see the requests that are still pending, that has not been given a status of rejected or accepted or approved. So this is the method that will handle that. Now we've already created the parameters for this, and it has only an exporting parameter, which is the internal table type. So let me change this for consistency. So let's change this for consistency's sake. So I use this one. Yeah. Okay. So now let's create the method signature. Double click on this. Yeah, so now this is the method for getting or pending requests. So select all the leave requests with the status pending. Okay, so we select from the table into the table type ET request where the status is pending. And so if we save this, Control S, Control F2, and Control F3, this is activated. And that way we could also test the method without necessarily creating a test report. After activating it, you can just click on this in the test environment, F8, and then you get all the methods and attributes for this class. So this was the approved request. Now we are looking at, now we are testing the get pending request. So click here, execute, and then you see that the ET request has 6 entries. So if you click on this edit table, you get the output. So this is what? These are all the pending requests. You can see that the status here is pending and pending. Okay, so now you see that we've implemented all the methods. Of course, you could also test other methods in here. So you can approve request method. This one needs request ID and approval ID. So I can't remember that now. So let's see, create requests, execute. So let's say I want to create a request ID, employee ID. Let's give it E005. Okay, now what is the start date for the leave? Today is, so let's say the start date should be 27/06/2025, and then end dates, let's say 27/07/2025. What's the leave type? The leave type, let's call it let's say education leave, something like that. Okay, and then hit on enter. Click on execute. So now when we executed, you see that this was created and it created the new required ID for this employee 05. Okay, now we are going to check. Remember the employee number, the employee ID is 05 and the required ID is 12. So let's check the details for this guy. He has created the request. So as the manager, we want to approve that particular request that was created with required ID 00012. Okay, so let's go to the approve request method. So it's request for required ID. So the required ID for that employee was, okay, I hope I got the zeros right. And then let's say the manager that approved this would be manager 005. Okay, so execute this. Okay, request not found. Maybe the number was not complete. Let's do this again. Okay, now that was it. So now we want to get the manager has approved the request. So if we execute this for employee E005, so let's see the status of that request. So this was the request, education, and it has been approved. Interesting, right? Interesting. So this was the required ID 12, employee ID 05, the start date, the end date, the type of the leave, the status, the request date. Yeah, this is missing. Need to input this request date and then the manager that approved the request. So these are all the methods that was implemented for this global class. And yeah, so by doing this, we don't need to create test reports for every scenario. Okay, now yeah, so now we have completed all the core methods, the create request. You've seen it, I've tested it in the method run environment, the approve request, the reject request, the get employee request, the get pending request, and this was quite fun so far. So of course, if you are new to this channel, don't forget to support my channel, support this new channel, and subscribe, like the videos. Of course, you can also share. So having got all this method and tested the method, the next thing we want to do is tie everything together, and then we'll allow the employee to be able to input the data themselves, the start date, the test process we had coded them. So employees can enter their employee ID, their request date, their start and the end date, and also the managers can also approve and have access to a report that does this. So see you in the next video, and don't forget to subscribe.